Regular viewers of this channel will know that I'm a big advocate for shooting photos and videos with your iPhone. And on this channel with over 100 and something cycling videos, I can tell you that basically all of the riding footage is taken with my phone. In today's episode, part 3 on how to take better cycling photos with your phone, I'm going out for a ride and a shoot with a friend of mine to take you guys behind the scenes while I take shots while I'm out on the bike. This is part 3 of a 3-part video series with part 1 that you can see up here. In part 1, I talk about how to access your camera within your phone, some of the basic settings that I have set up in my phone, and some simple ways to make your cycling photos look that little bit better. In part 2, I talk about more of the creative concepts of photography and what you guys can look for while you're out on the road to make your photos look even better again. In this episode, part 3, I'm getting out for a ride and a shoot with a friend of mine to show you more of what I look for while I'm out cycling and taking photos to help you guys really take your photography to the next level. Before we get into this episode, there's 2 quick things I do want to mention. The first one is how to access your camera in a way that I didn't mention in part 1, and that is using the Siri function. If you have Siri set up on your Apple iPhone, you can simply say, "Hey Siri, take a photo," and it will open the camera. I find this function really useful if you're riding in the rain or you've got thick and heavy gloves on and you can't access your screen. The second thing I want to mention is that I'm running a photo submission competition where I'm going to talk about your photos in a future YouTube episode. I mentioned this at the end of part 2, so if you haven't seen that, please do go give it a watch and then submit some of your best photos to me so I can give them a ranking in a future video. And now with that admin out the way, I'm gonna go and get my kit on. I'm gonna go and get out for a ride before the sunset gets too low, and we'll chat to you from our first spot along the way. I hope you guys will enjoy this part 3, and let's do it. Howdy, alrighty, welcome to today's episode of Tristan Take Video. Today is part 3 of how to shoot better cycling photos with your iPhone, and today I'm actually out doing a bike riding photo shoot. As I said in that intro, parts 1 and part 2 are a must watch if you are new here. I'm gonna put a link to part 2 up there. Part 1 I put at the start. And today I'm out with Kristen Cohen, my good friend Kristen. If you've been following me for a little while now, you'll know that I rode in Mallorca with Kristen last year. And the year before, we actually did a ride that we're doing today in Girona. There's a link to that up there. In that ride, we did a 60-kilometer loop, and today we're doing it in reverse. Now, we've rolled out this afternoon in some super nice light. As you can see, it's currently a little bit harsh, but the reason I wanted to roll out in the afternoon is to do with the point I made in video 2, and that was about riding and shooting in really nice light. In my opinion, one of the best ways of getting the best photos is to ride in really nice light, and as the sunset gets lower and lower this afternoon, we should get some nicer and nicer light. Before we get into the actual shooting just now, I just want to discuss 2 things that I haven't mentioned in the previous 2 parts. And that is firstly, how to access your phone really quickly and access the camera while you're actually out on the bike. And also another element that I want to talk about, and that is cleaning your lens off when you're out on the road so your images don't come out blurry. As you can see, today I'm wearing cargo bibs from Attacker, and the cargo bibs have a shorts pocket in the side of them. Now, the reason I've got the cargo bibs on is because I can have my phone against my leg there. I don't have to reach into my back. I can just grab the phone out of my pocket really quickly, do that swipe across method that I was mentioning in episode 1, and access the camera really fast. With the cargo bibs that I've got on today, these are the slightly older cargo bibs from Attacker, but the newer cargo bibs actually have 2 pockets. They've got a left side and a right side pocket. So if you are left-handed or you prefer shooting with your left side, the Attacker cargo bibs have 2 pockets in them, which I really like. But for the moment, I've got the right-hand side pocket only, and that's fine because I shoot with my right hand all the time. So yeah, accessing my phone, swiping across really fast is really important because of the fact that I like to basically be shooting in a moment and not need to set anything up. We have stopped on the ride today, but generally I just ride and I shoot the entire time while I'm riding. I don't actually come to a stop to take images. And when I see things coming, being able to access my phone from the cargo pocket makes a massive difference. So that is point number 1. The second point I want to mention is cleaning off your lens. Now, obviously, if you pull your phone out of your pocket mid-summer, there's always a bit of sweat on there, and sweat on any of the lenses on the phone is going to make a big difference to the way that that the images come out in terms of their clarity. So for that, what I often do is I will just get the cleanest part of my jersey and I'll just wipe all of the lenses on the iPhone just to clean off any sweat or any smudge marks, and that keeps the images crystal clear. If you don't do that, you are going to notice that your images have that kind of sweaty, smeared look. The colors aren't going to be as crystal clear and the sharpness of the image is going to be lacking. So literally every time I get my phone out of my pocket, I am wiping off the lens, and I highly recommend that you guys do that too. So before we just keep riding here and keep shooting some photos, there's one more thing I want to point out. I haven't mentioned it in parts 1 and part 2, but it's really, really important I mention it in this video because we're actually out here for the practical element of shooting, and that's safety. Obviously, you guys would have seen that I shoot all my photos one-handed. If you guys shoot, you're also riding one-handed. There is an element of safety or danger to this that you need to pay attention to. I do it because I understand being balanced on the bike, and I feel confident doing it because I've been doing it for years and years. But if you guys are new to this, either come to a stop if you're not confident, or take it very easy. Make sure you're on smooth roads with no potholes and things like that before you start shooting one-handed. I have to leave that disclaimer in there just to make sure you guys are safe. And yeah, with all that, let's keep rolling and we will keep shooting some photos. Alrighty, so rolling along here, one of the shots that I always really like to get that you guys would have seen if you've been following me on either Strava or the Tristan Take 365 account is a kind of front 3/4 shot looking back at the rider. I am a big fan of using the wide angle lens for this shot. One thing you need to be aware of if you are shooting this kind of shot though is how high or low you hold the camera. If you're shooting a photo of a bike rider and you've got the wide angle lens on and you shoot from too high an angle, there's always an element where the bike rider looks a bit silly because they look all small and crunched up. And if you're too close to them, because of the fact that the edges of the frame are really stretched out, it kind of can make their limbs look a bit odd. But if you get the angle right and you hold the camera a little bit lower, kind of that handlebar height, or maybe even a little bit lower, you can kind of get a really nice frame where the rider looks like they're doing a lot of action. And even if they're just cruising along, it can look kind of cool. Once you start adding in some elements of road and sunlight peeking through in the background, you can end up with some really nice shots with that wide angle lens. So one of the points that I made in part 2 a lot, and I want to say it again, aside from always shooting in nice light, is always looking for clean and minimal backgrounds. That also extends to clean and minimal colors. As you can see, I've asked Kristen this afternoon to wear these kind of sunsetty tones, like the golden jersey with the navy blue, and that's like the blue of the sky, and then the gold of the sunshine. And what that helps do is keep the image nice and clean. And then that also extends to the kind of landscape you're in, looking for clean and minimal backgrounds, and also really symmetrical roads, things that we're riding along. If you can integrate elements of symmetry into your frame, you'll find that the images are nice and clean and they come out more visually appealing. All right, so we've just got to the top of Santa Playa, the climb. We're just about to do this little descent. I'm gonna shoot some photos of Kristen on the way down, and then we'll talk to you at the next location we get to. Alrighty, cool. So we just came over the top of Santa Playa, the climb. We went down the descent and past that tunnel of trees where I just shot those photos that you would have seen. I'm just going to explain my thought process as I was descending off Santa Playa, just then following Kristen. Now, as we came over the top and started descending, usually what I do in a scenario like this, if I'm with another rider, is I'll whack the camera on wide angle lens and get nice and close to them and kind of follow them around the corners. One of the really important things to know with lens choice is that as you go wider and the perspective changes, the sensation of speed also changes in the image. So if you're really zoomed in, the ground is not moving underneath you all that fast, and a rider's not going to be looking like they're moving that fast. But as you go back to sort of a 1 times, or you go to the 0.5, the wide angle, the ground looks like it's moving really fast underneath the rider. And if you've got the light low enough and the shutter speed kind of slows down a little bit in the phone with that auto exposure, it means that you get that blur underneath the rider. As I was chasing Kristen down there, I was getting little bits of blur underneath her and in the surroundings around her, which looked pretty cool. The only problem that I had going down that descent just then was the sun was behind us, behind me, and as you can see, there were certain points where my shadow was in the frame, and also the light was just a little bit harsh. I didn't love it as much. I generally like shooting into the sun for a better result, but we got some pretty cool shots. That was a nice little first descent. The light is getting nicer and the sun's getting a bit lower in the sky. We came along that flat bit on the other side there, and this is where I know this ride really, really well, and I knew that tunnel of trees was coming up. So what I did was I got in front of Kristen and I snapped off a bunch of photos of her in that tunnel of trees looking into the sun, which is an example of why I like shooting into the sun. You had those really cool wide shadows on the ground and the sunlight poking through there, and Kristen in the center, framed up quite cool. You could see the trees above. That's a shot that I really, really like. So now we're just heading off to find another location, and I'll chat to you guys more very shortly. Cool, so just been sort of rolling along here. Kristen's been in Girona for this week before she heads back to Colorado. And one thing that's so nice about riding in sort of this fortnight of the year or 3 weeks is that we got these amazing yellow canola fields in Girona. Part of the reason I love it is because they're so vivid. And one of the other reasons that I really love them is because I'm always looking for color minimalism in terms of getting the image as simple as possible. So when you've got block colors in the background, that can be things like bright blue sky that has no clouds in it, yellow fields like this, kit that's all the same color, everything matching. You can reduce down as many visual elements as possible, and these canola fields are a perfect way of doing that and getting an exciting and a cool and a really visually intense and interesting looking photo. So I'm just going to shoot a few photos of Kristen in front of the yellow fields, and then because the sun's setting, we're going to keep rolling. All right, let's keep going. So we're just on this really clean little bit of road that I know really, really well. One of the things about this ride is that I know all the sections on the ride that look really good visually. And for you guys, if you're out doing bike rides that you know, always look for clean spaces on that ride. Not everyone goes out to ride in really nice light, and often one of the issues that happens is that if you're riding in the middle of the day and you've got that harsh light, it's kind of hard to get really nice photos. But what you can do is you can find other ways of cleaning up your images, having really clean backgrounds to give your photos a bit of a unique look or an edge. One of those is, like I keep saying, using really, really clean backgrounds. And also another one I like is looking at leading lines. Now, when you've got a subject in a frame, obviously you're a bike rider, you want all the lines in the frame to lead towards your subject. It's a good way of drawing your eye to a subject, whether that be horizon lines or road lines or trees, any secondary or tertiary elements in a frame that can point the viewer's eyes to the main subject are gonna make your photos more interesting. And because we ride on the road and you literally have lines on the road, by utilizing those lines and putting them in the right place and putting the subject, the rider, in the right place, you'll find that you end up with really interesting and unique photos. So riding along this bit of road here, it's a super clean bit of road, I know it really well, and I just asked Kristen to ride on the white line because there's no cars around. I shot some photos of her kind of holding the camera up high looking down, so she was basically just framed against the road, and the white line just lead your eyes straight to her. So yeah, an interesting, cool little photo. We're gonna keep rolling now, and we're almost at Els Angels. Alrighty, so just at the top of Els Angels here, this is our second climb, and the climb that's just outside of Girona, this is my favorite descent in all of Girona, and recently they actually hot mixed the road to make it look really beautiful and also make it super smooth to descend on. We've actually got out here at 8:19 and sunset today is 8:19, so the sun's actually just dipped below the horizon, so I'm not going to shoot into the sun in quite the way I wanted to, but this is the final shot of the day, and this is a shot that if you've been following me on Strava or Instagram, you would have seen that I take this photo a lot. It's descending down this beautiful descent. As I said, it's one of my favorites, and it's the final element of this shoot today that I'm doing, or this ride in this shoot. The reason why is because it combines everything that I like in photography. I've spoken a lot about visual minimalism, and this descent is the perfect place to get that visual minimalism. The road, having been resurfaced, is super smooth. It's pitch black. When you're descending down here, you're looking into the sun, which is something that I love. There's a lot of sections without barriers, so you don't have that visual clutter on it, and it's just a descent that I love photographing, whether it be with my phone or whether it be with my main camera. If you enjoyed this episode, I hope you will join me for more by clicking the subscribe button, and please do like it. It tells YouTube that you've enjoyed this episode and they recommend it to more people. I also want to give a massive shout out to Kristen Cohen. I'm going to put her Instagram in the description. Go and give her a follow as well. She's an artist living in Colorado, so thank you to her for her time in today's video, being my model and the person who I'm riding my bike with. So we're going to descend down here, do these photos, and I'll see you guys all in another episode of Tristan Take Video very soon. All right, cheers guys. Adeu.